Welcome to Taylor High's Joseph Wilson Library Resource Centre's reading of Fabled Beast Chronicles First Aid for Fairies by Lari for World Book Day 2021. Read by librarian A.Leslie. I will read pages 89 to 94. Fabled beasts don't just exist in legends, they're real and they need help. Helen is very surprised to find a grumpy injured centaur on her doorstep. And that's just the beginning. Helen's first aid kit comes in handy when she meets the other fabled beasts, a dragon, a fairy, a phoenix and a selkie, who seem to have a habit of getting into trouble. Together Helen and her new friends must solve riddles, fight fawns and defeat the dangerous master of the maze before midwinter and the end of the world. I will now read from chapter 9. Helen found it easier to balance on the dragon when she was in the air. The smooth beats of Sapphire's wings didn't swing her from side to side like the dragon's lurching footsteps did. So once Helen got used to the feel of the dragon's muscles stretching and contracting under her and the pressure of the air forced down by the wings at each beat, she felt quite secure. Sapphire didn't have a completely spiky back, just half a dozen pairs of spikes spaced along her spine, and the girl sat between them, using them as handles. Helen's grip on the silver spikes in front of her was soon light and gentle, not tight and white-knuckled. There was a longer pair of spikes on Sapphire's head and a cluster of smaller ones like a medieval weapon on her tail. She had gleaming blue scales shining in the moonlight. The scales on her legs and neck were quite small, but on her back they were as big as Helen's hand. The smooth, dry scales were leaf-shaped and fitted neatly together in clusters and rows. Helen thought she could glimpse patterns and shapes in the scales, clouds, crystals, spirals, feathers. The wind whizzed past them, carrying the occasional surprise, like a shocked and swerving owl or a sudden slap of cold wet cloud. Helen cried out the first time she was surrounded by tiny swirling drops of water, and then laughed with relief a moment later as they flew on, leaving the cloud behind. This was nothing like dragon dreams or dragon stories. It was much, much better. For most of the journey, Lavender sat on Helen's shoulder, holding her hair, whispering in her ear and giggling, which was quite tickly. Catesby flew above them, keeping up comfortably with the dragon and her passengers. After they had flown for so long that most of the stars had come out, Sapphire swooped down through a layer of cloud and landed beside a wall of huge flagstones shoved into the bare earth. Helen and Rona slid to the ground, and Catesby glided down beside them, Lavender perched on Sapphire's snout, a safe distance from her nostrils. But the wind that had battered them as they flew, which Helen had thought was caused by their speeds through the air, didn't die down much as they landed. They took shelter behind the wall so they could hear each other, and Lavender lit a few light bulbs, which she kept near the wall so they wouldn't blow away. "This is Caithness," Lavender explained to Helen as Sapphire rumbled. "This is the last land in Scotland before the Pentland Firth. Now we need to decide how to get to the right island and what we will do when we get there." Helen wished she had brought a map of Scotland as well as the sketch of the stone circle she had shown them earlier. "Have any of you been to Orkney?" she asked. "I have," said Rona, "but I went by sea. The island shouldn't be too hard to find. We'll listen for waves on the rocks and the sounds of seabirds, or we could just ask for direction." Catesby spoke briefly and Rona explained. "Catesby thinks we should land inside the circle in case the master's creatures are already there. We should land a little way off and sneak up to the circle." Helen didn't like to ask whether dragons can sneak, especially dragons carrying rocks. Instead, she asked, "Are we looking for a clue or for your book?" "Both. If the book is there, we treat it with great respect and ask it to return with us. If it has been scared off again and has left a clue, we grab the clue and get away as quickly as possible." "And if the master and his creatures are there?" Lavender's voice wobbled a little. "Then we still have to get the book or the clue. By force, cunning or sacrifice if needed," Rona said grimly. Lavender nodded. "Then we must decide where to look." Glancing at Helen's sketch, the fairy drew the stone circle on the bare earth with her tiny toe. She jumped into the middle. I will search the centre, as that is where the power of the circle is concentrated, and the rest of you must look at each stone on the edge, including the gaps where stones have fallen or been taken, as there will still be energy in their emptiness. From her position in the centre, she split the circle into 4 quadrants and gave each of her friends an equal stretch of the edge to search. They agreed to split up outside the circle and return as quickly and quietly as possible to their landing site once they had explored their quadrant. Helen's tummy, which hadn't objected to dragon swoops and swings, was starting to somersault at the thought of searching for a stone circle in the dark on her own. It had been exciting hearing the tales of the others' adventures and patching them up afterwards, but now she was inside the adventure, putting herself at risk, facing barely understood dangers to find something she had never seen. However, she could hardly back out now, miles from home and so close to the circle. As he climbed back onto Sapphire in the fading fairy light, Helen noticed that Rona had a small fur fabric bag on her back. Is that to carry the book home in? Because you could use my rucksack if you like. No, this is my skin. If we find what we need without meeting danger or anyone getting hurt, I may go and visit my cousins off Stromness before we leave. I need my skin to return to my seal shape. Helen hesitated before sitting behind Rona. That bag was real fur. More than that, it was real living fur. It was part of Rona's body that she put on and off. Rona seemed the most normal of Helen's new friends. No wings, only 2 legs, no fire breathing, but Helen suddenly realised that Rona was probably the strangest of them all. Rona changed shape. Does it hurt changing shape? It's a bit stretchy and itchy and quite tiring, but it's not sore. However, I do have to take good care of my seal skin. I have to keep it with me or leave it with someone I trust completely, because if I lose it, I can never swim or sing in the sea again. Then Sapphire leapt off into the dark air, and the speed of her flight into the wind dragged the rest of Rona's words right past Helen's ears. Helen had no idea how they found the mainland of Orkney. They flew north for a few more minutes until they were surrounded by the sound and smell of the sea. Then Sapphire circled round and flew so close to the tops of the waves that they were splashed by the salty spray thrown up by the gathering wind. Rona called out a question in a strange, shrieky voice, and some seals answered her, head rising out of the churning sea. Rona pointed Sapphire in a new direction, and soon they could see a faint glow of light from towns on the edges of the islands. They swerved round a burning flare from an oil terminal on one of the smaller islands and found themselves above the sand, rocks and fields of mainland Orkney. Sails resting by a rusting pier gave Rona further directions to the circle. They found the ring a couple of miles inland on a small hill between 2 lochs, just beside a narrow road. From above, the stones looked like great slabs of darkness in the night. Sapphire landed gently and silently on the side of the road between the larger loch and the circle. Catesby and Lavender perched on fence posts. Rona slid off the dragon, then Helen followed her. They huddled together. Off we go, each to their own search, instructed Lavender. I would like to thank the publisher, Kelpies, and of course the very talented Lari for allowing me to read and produce this for my school and at Library Taylor for this World Book Day 2021.